Hi, my scaredy cats. My name is Kate from Scaredy Cat Gaming, and we are back in with a case of distrust. Now, I'm so sorry. Um, we left off going into the Southern Coffee, and we are talking to Frankie right now because I am lost. I sat down at the bar and summarized my night for Frankie, including the shipman had told me this morning. Frankie's eyebrows raised in shock throughout the story. He was attentive and asked many questions. He shook his head in disbelief as I finished the story. This is some case. Do you think you'll go through with it? I told him I thought I would. He sighed. I don't know, Malone. These Egan rats sound dangerous. You sure you know what you're doing? I answered with a stern look. Well, alright. Just let me know if I can help with anything. I didn't get him. I have to find a reason for someone wanting Green dead, I said to Frankie. And if he's part of Egan's rats, that might be reason enough for someone to bump him off. Malone, be careful. They're notorious out east. If they're here now... He trailed off. I nodded. Anyhow, what else did you want to talk about? So far, I'm literally only suspecting 2 people, and that would be, I'm suspecting Miss Green, and I'm suspecting Tiny Paul, because Tiny Paul isn't there today, and Miss Green, well, Ella said Fanny wasn't in the pool hall at midnight, so I think I'm going to go confront her about that. Never mind, I said, swiveled my seat from the bar. I'm going to confront her about it, but I'm not going to accuse her of anything. I'm just going to confront her about it. I want to see what she says to that. Also, the barber isn't there? Like, who leaves mid-cut? I don't want to talk to you. I'm in the middle of talking to these people. I dozed in the back seat until we arrived. Yes, I know. Miss Green was seated in a chair, considerably more awake than the previous day. Miss Malone, have you found anything about my husband's killer? She asked in her chair. I mumbled a greeting and sat down beside her. One of your backing singers claims you left the upstairs room before midnight, I said from my notes. That's not true, she said. Definitely. I was there the entire evening. She seemed quite sure, Miss Green. She sang to a drunken boys without you there. But I asked our doorman, Miss Malone. He says nobody left the upstairs room. You're doing your own digging? I asked. She blushed. I just have no confidence in police. Anyhow, if anybody came from upstairs, that eliminates anybody in the pool room. I must have been in the restroom if Ella is certain I wasn't with them at the exact time, because I could not have been outside. She has a point. I moved on to further questions. As I said before, Ella Smith tells it differently, I reminded her. Well, the doorman says otherwise, she replied definitely. So either I was in the billiards hall, or stepped out briefly to powder my face. See, I don't believe her! There's just something about her. I want to accuse her, but I don't have a means, I don't have motive. Money, maybe? To take in the business? I don't want to talk to anybody, I just want to get to the place. Alright, is there a way I can, like, talk to the doorman or something? Because because I'm completely lost. How would that not be meaningful? Alright, it's obvious I'm not gonna get anything here. So let's go to Stable's barbershop. Let's see if we can confront him and ask him if he knows anything about, like, why he's not there. I don't want to talk. Okay, let's see. Ricardo was sitting seated in the chair. Stable had yet to return. I pushed Carter further on why he was at the barbershop, but he refused to tell me anything. Rambling a while, but didn't give it anything new. Tell me why he isn't there. What am I missing? I didn't get anything out of him. Let's go to Frankie and see if he knows. Yeah. You know Redstone Stable isn't in his barbershop, I mentioned. The Bassett at the Tin Spoon. Ray Carter is there. That's right, said Frankie. And apparently he won a boatload of cash from Paul last night. Oh. I was like, wait, what happened about the other things? He what? Frankie said, with much surprise in his voice. What's the matter? From what I know of the guy, Tiny Paul is a shark at any gambling. If he won against Paul, either he's fantastic too, or there's a curveball in here. You're on the money, Frankie. Turns out there was an extra ace in the deck they used last night. Frankie whistled. You want to see Carter squirm? Tell him you know about that ace. I nodded. Perhaps it could lead somewhere. Never mind, I said, and swiveled my seat away from the bar. Wait, which one's Carter? Are we talking about Ray Carter? Alright. So, let's go check him out. See if I can get some info out of him now. Bum, ba-dum, bum, 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 bum. Ba-dum, bum, 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 bum. I feel like I'm on a lead. Let's go crack this case wide open. Let's go. Okay, talk to him. He smiled at me. I wasn't sure if he was happy to see me or just happy to talk to somebody. I think it might be in evidence. Cards on the table. How much did you win last night? I asked him. Oh, a heap of it, he grinned. And how many aces did it take you to get there? His face contorted to somewhere between surprise and frown. And how many aces did Tiny Paul think were in that deck? I poked further. Now you look here, he growled. Tiny Paul is a mean-spirited, no-good, black-hating son of a bitch. He pays us pennies and wants us to be good and smile for him. Well, I am not having that, miss. No, I am not having that at all. Yes, I took him for a ride, and I feel no remorse for it. In some ways, it is all part of the game. I said that was all right, but Tiny Paul might see it differently. Oh, now you would not tell him, would you? He pleaded. I don't see a reason. I don't see a reason I need to. I said, as long as you tell me what I need to know. He smiled. Well, certainly. Most certainly. What is it that you want? I was glad he knew the score. I want to know where Stable is, I told him. Stable was here. Conagadle and unhurried. Then he received a telephone call and said he had to check on something at his Transform racetrack. He told me to just sit tight until he returned, and here we are. So Stable had gone to his horses. Another lead that would need chasing. You know, he continued, I bet I had no reason to cheat last night, not with the way Ellie kept distracting him. Yes, he was very distracted indeed. I raised a questioning brow. Ella Smith and Tiny Paul have something going on. That girl throws herself onto him like she'd throw water on a fire. I noted that and changed our subject of conversation. Alright, well, thank you. I decided to leave him be. I knew I could always come back later with more questions. Now, before I go to the racetrack, I want to talk to Ella. Let's go talk to Ella. She said that her and Paul never had a close relationship. Well, this makes me think otherwise. Because you don't just throw yourself at somebody unless you're trying to get money out of them, or if you like them. Red Cotter tells me that you and Tiny Paul are close, I said. Is that true, Miss Smith? Smith squinted at me hopefully, then let out a sigh. Okay, he's right, she blurted. I'm in love with Paul. That's no crime. It was obvious she wanted to hide the relationship. If the two of them ever broke it off, her career would be doomed. I empathized with her. The heart never plays fair. This won't get out of my account, I promised, but you have to tell me Tiny Paul's whereabouts. She sighed and gave me the address of a Pacific Heights apartment building. He lives in a penthouse on the top floor. Just don't tell him I told you. I thanked her for Paul's address and changed the subject. Let me look at my notes real quick. Notes. There was something else in the statements. Alright, let's go check out Paul before we check out the racetrack. Tiny Paul was in his Pacific Heights penthouse. If I had any questions for him, I could go there. I flagged a taxi cab and was on my way. Thought about chatting with the driver to pass time. Nah. I dozed in the back of the seat until we arrived. You sure do take a lot of taxis, and if you take that many taxis, then you should... Oh crap, I didn't want to do that. I wanted to read that. Give me a minute, I'll go back. Okay, here we go. Paul's building was still new, built only a few years earlier, but it was already a beacon of Pacific Heights, tall and proud above its surroundings. Its crisp vanilla interior was accented with gold, and its elevator was run by an equally immaculate operator. I rode it to the top floor bungalow that belonged to Tiny Paul. Paul's home was extravagant. Every item, according to the apartment, was of high quality, but there was an evident lack of finesse to their combination, as though Paul had simply purchased expensive extremities without any thoughts of design. Paul's light brown shoes were discarded beside the couch he lay on. A hat hung from the rack nailed to the back wall, as did an empty gun holster. The couch and chairs had patterned olive-colored cushions. Their arms and legs were a gaudy shade of gold, matching the gold of the tables. A wrapped bouquet of flowers lay on the table. They were vibrant yellow. They reminded me of flowers I'd seen earlier, but I couldn't place them at the moment. The ones at, oh, I don't know, Miss Green's apartment. A cluster of brown glass bottles were on the far table. They were empty. An oil painting that hung on the wall had no particular theme. One had roses, another showed a landscape, but each of their frames were originally carved from a fine wood. Let's talk. Tiny Paul was sprawled across the Chesterfield, smelling of rubbing alcohol. I said hello. It took a century, but his eyes eventually climbed to meet mine, and he slurred a greeting. I figured a drunk Tiny Paul could be more honest. I thought it was a good time to grill him. Green was killed around midnight, I told him. Do you remember anything from then? After the jazz stopped playing, at 10, I went up to the pool room to shoot. I think the whole band came in. We played cards until early in the morning. So you were in the Tin Spoon all night? I asked. After 10, he nodded. Though I did leave before then. I met with Redstone Stable at 9 o'clock. Then around 5 in the morning, it seemed like he hadn't slept much. You met with Stable? I asked. Why? I ain't telling you that, sister. Then why should I believe you at all? Believe what you want, he snorted. It was in the pool hall when Green was shot. I was in the pool hall when Green was shot. I didn't challenge him on that point. I told Paul that Green had been killed with a large automatic. He replied sardonically. What is our country coming to? So many people owning firearms. Tisk, tisk. Green was killed around midnight. I told him, do you remember anything? He said, I told you, I was playing cards upstairs. Did you have a reason to want Green dead? I put to him bluntly. He looked away and didn't answer further. That face looked concerned. You knew Green's supply was baloney, I said. He nodded. So you know the game. You did too? I replied, surprise evident in my voice. Early this morning, he slurred. I went to, well, you don't need to know where. Even abbreviated Tiny Paul knew enough to not give away family secrets. Anyhow, it's enough to tell you this. Green was pulling the bait and switch. He wanted to take our money and get out of the city. He had no plan to sell us any of the stuff. So yeah, I'm glad he got what was coming to him. But no, he extended the last letter. I'm not the one that plugged him. As much as Paul claimed to not be responsible, I wondered how much I could trust the word of a gangster. At least, his drunken speech had given me a possible motive. I think this will be the same thing. Yeah, that'll give me the same thing. Okay. You want any guns, I asked. Tiny Paul looked at me with enough irony to kill a horse. Not a single one, Malone. I pointed to the empty holster in the room. That strap, just hold your slingshot. Paul's deep breath carried more booze than a bootlegger's truck. All right, Malone, he said with slurred words. I do carry a gun, but you're barking up the wrong tree. Lay off if you know what's good for you. You don't even know what my gun looks like. You're right, I don't. I chose to let that slide just then. You're right, I don't know what it looks like, but I do know that you have a gun. Let's talk about the flowers. I noticed the flowers on your ottoman, I said to him. A vibrant yellow, though I didn't peg you as a tulip kind of gal. Well, he hiccuped, you hardly got to know me. Who are they for, Paul? My mother, he said finally. He said with finality. Tiny Paul didn't strike me as a man who would buy a dozen flowers for his mother. He wouldn't tell me who the flowers are for, but I let it just go then. First, prophet passwords from the English poets, now oil canvases hanging on your walls. He threw me a laughed grin. Well, I've got to play the part of it if I want to get into the best clip joints. You know, you're not wrong. He just grinned. Apparently he had nothing more to say about that. Okay. I'll get to the other stuff in a minute. Paul's response was to simply look at me with glossed eyes. Alright, well, let's get to the other stuff then. He just grunted. Apparently he had nothing more to say about that. I don't want to say that because that might get him in trouble. You know that blackhand letter Green got was fake. So somebody was goofing Green? Or maybe Green was just toying with you, like he does with us. Police say Green was a ghost in San Francisco before 1920, I said Paul. And now he's a ghost here too. What do you want me to say, Malone? Tell me what you know, damn it! Okay, here we go. Let's ask about this. Green was killed around midnight. I told you I was playing cards upstairs from 10 o'clock until early morning. I didn't challenge him with that. No, because everybody says the same thing. I don't think all of them have been talking. Ella Smith tells me little Fanny was absent from the billiard room at midnight. I told him, so? He asked impatiently. So, was she? Malone, when I've got my head down in a poker game, the building could burst to the ground and I wouldn't notice. I know she came up with us, and I walked her to the cab when we left. Otherwise, I don't know who was in or out of the billiards room. Alright, so he walked her to a cab. Ella Smith tells me that most of the regulars are packing heat. Paul frowned. If you'd like to put me on the stand for crimes my patrons commit, I don't think I have any chance of beating the rap. But I don't control what my guests do, Malone. I'm done with you. I decided to leave him be. I could always return with further questions. So I'm glad I met with him. He gave me some information that I did not know. He was so deep in his poker game that he didn't notice if anybody left. But he did walk her to a car, so she should have still been there. I don't want to talk to anybody. We're gonna go to the racetrack. The Tanford racetrack had reopened the previous year with the help of millionaire Adolf Spreckles and some associates, one of whom was stable. Today no races were ongoing, and the sheer size of the empty grounds and the grandstands were impressive. I hopped and locked turnstile and wandered the grandstands and some of the grounds, but all my searching turned up nothing and nobody, not even a stable. I returned near the entrance to search for more clues. Empty boxes were thrown next to the old betting house. I spent some time rummaging through them, but found nothing of interest. Wooden slats boarded the window to the old betting house. The Walker Otis measure of 1909 prohibited gambling on horses, which meant most racetracks shuttered, including the Foreign. But Stable and a few other investors reopened the track the previous year, claiming to operate without taking bets. I removed the trash bin's lid to let my hands play with something while the thoughts had time to form, but peering in, I saw the biggest break in the case thus far. An automatic pistol, 45 caliber, was right on top of the pile. I reached in to get a closer look. A throat cleared behind me. I pocketed the weapon quickly, then turned around to Stable's smug grin. "Have you come to watch the horses?" he asked. "Rumor says that running through fire will be the victor, though at times it can be dangerous to put stock in rumors." Green already thought you had it out for him, I said. "What if he had good cause to think that? Wouldn't his bootlegging scheme put you under?" "Miss Malone," Stable smiled, "I assure you I did no illegal rum run. Green's story was simply a ruse. Have you not discovered that yet? I had no reason whatsoever to murder Green." I still wasn't sure if Stable did, in fact, bootlegging. But I couldn't think of anything to prove it, or that he had any motivations at all to kill Green. "Red Carter told me something interesting," I put to him. "He says you got a wire from somebody and rushed out, leaving him mid-trim." For the first time, I saw Stable frown. "Well, business and pleasure sometimes mix, Miss Malone. Yes, I was telephoned for a maintenance issue, but that's now all sorted." "Tiny Paul tells me that you two met last night," I put to Stable, "and then you met again early this morning. He says you look ragged. Not much sleep then?" "Very well," Stable sighed. "I do admit that I spent yesterday searching for information on this case, and that perhaps the search bled into the morning. In my situation, would you not also look for clues against Green, a man who had accused you of blackmail?" I must have beamed at him, armed now with the knowledge that Stable had no alibi the previous night. "However," he continued, "when the search to clear my name, I did find a fact that might interest you. A fact that I had kept to myself, but if Paul wishes to lay claims at my feet, I might as well tell you." I looked at him quizzically. The tiny spoon has a back exit. Patrons likely have no suspicion of it, but I am certain many of the staff know. They could get enter and leave without anybody noticing. "And how do you know this?" I asked. "Never mind how I came about the information. Just be thankful I am giving it to you. If you do not believe me, I encourage you to ask the others about it." That was a particular development. I noted it and continued my questioning. Okay, so I just found the gun. I found an automatic in your trash bin. This 45 is a gangster caliber. What are the chances it's the same one that killed Green? Staple frowned again. I was beginning to like his frowns. So it seems to me, I continued, that your boys found the murder weapon in the trash, then called you around to see what to do about it. Yes, he admitted. I was telephoned to look at the weapon. We were about to phone the police about it when I noticed you wander in the grounds. Why were you so interested in the Green case? And why is this gun here? He sighed. Do you remember, Miss Malone, that Connor Green had already admitted to frame me once I had learned of his death? I thought that whomever had killed him would also try to blame me. I invaded Carter for a trim in exchange for information about the murder, and I told my associates to watch for anything suspicious at the racetrack. As soon as the gun was found, they telephoned me, and here we are. So you still won't admit to the murder? I pushed him. Think what you want, Miss Malone, but I had no reason to kill Connor Green. And if you think otherwise, you were just playing into a game set up by the real killer. That was the story Stable was sticking with. Still, I was much further than I had been, and that gave me reason to smile. Alright, so I'm actually going to end this episode here. I am getting more interested in this as I keep playing it. So, if you haven't already, subscribe to my channel. If you like this video, hit that like button. And if you'd like to follow me on Twitter and Instagram, I'll put the links in the description below. Until next time, my scaredy guys. Bye-bye!